Actually, I bought this book like maybe 10 years ago, or even more. I don't know, I don't remember. But let's see. Number 1, ultimatum. Bella, I don't know why you're making Charlie carry notes to Billy like we're in 2nd grade. If I wanted to talk to you, I would answer the "you made a choice here, okay? You can have it both ways when." What part of Mortal Enemies is too complicated for you to? Look, I know I'm being a yerk, but there is just no way around. It just makes it worse when I think about you too much. So don't write anymore. Yeah, I miss you too. A lot doesn't change anything. Sorry, Jacob. Oh my gosh. I ran my fingers across the page, filling the vents where he had pressed the pen to the paper so hard that it had nearly broken it through. I could picture him writing this, scrawling the angry letters in his rough handwriting, slashing through line after line when the words came out wrong, maybe even snapping the pen in his stupid hand. That would explain the ink splatters. I could imagine the frustration pulling his black eyebrows together and crumpling his forehead. If I'd been there, I might have laughed. Laughing was the last thing I felt like doing now as I reread the words I'd already memorized. His answer to my pleading note passed from Charlie to Billy to him, just like 2nd grade, as he had pointed out. Was no surprise. I know the essence of what it would say before I'd open it. What was surprising was how much each gross outline wounded me. Jacob's pain cut me deeper than my own. While I was pondering this, I caught the unmistakable scent of a smoking burner rising from the kitchen. In another house, the fact that someone besides myself was cooking might not be a cause for panicking. I shoved the crinkled paper into my back pocket and ran, making it downstairs in the nick of time. The jar of spaghetti sauce Charlie stuck in the microwave was only on its first revolution when I yanked the door and pulled it out. What did I do wrong? Charlie demanded. You're supposed to take the lid off first, Dad. Metal's bad for microwaves. I swiftly removed the lid as I spoke. Pour half the sauce into a bowl and then put the bowl inside the microwave and then the jar back in the fridge. I fixed the time and pressed start. Charlie watched my adjustment with pursed lips. Did I get the noodles right? I looked in the you're talking about, he grumbled. I was mystified. Charlie cooking, and what was with this surly attitude? Edward wasn't here yet. Usually my dad reserved this kind of behavior for my boyfriend's benefit, doing his best to illustrate the theme of unwelcome with every word and posture. Charlie's efforts were unnecessary. Edward knew exactly what my dad was thinking without the show. The word boyfriend had me chewing on the inside of my cheek with a familiar tension while I stared. It wasn't the right word, not at all. I needed something more expressive of a journal commitment, but words like destiny and fate sounded hokey when you used them in casual conversation. Edward had another word in mind, and that word was the source of the tension I felt. It put my teeth on the edge just to think it to myself. Fiancé. Ah, I shuddered away from the thought. Did I miss something? Since when do you make dinner? I asked Charlie. The pasta lump bobbed in the boiling water as I poked it. Or try to make dinner, I should say. Charlie shrugged. There's no law that says I can't cook in my own house. You would know, I replied. Huh, good one. He shrugged out of the jacket as if my glance had reminded him he still had it on, and hung it on the bag reserved for his gear. His gun belt was already slung in place. He hadn't felt the need to wear that to the station for a few weeks. There had been no more disturbing disappearances to trouble the small town of Forks, Washington. No more sightings of the giant, mysterious wolves in the ever-raining woods. I prodded the noodles in silence, guessing that Charlie would get around to talking about whatever was bothering him in his own time. My dad was not a man of many words, and the effort he had put Charlie wasn't precisely aware of that. Edward's ability to climb easily and silently through my second story window was almost as useful as his ability to read Charlie's mind. Through the afternoon was the only time I spent away from Edward. It was enough to make me restless, and the hours always dragged. Still, I endured my punishment without complaining because, for one thing, I knew I'd earned it, and for another, because I couldn't bear to hurt my dad by moving out now, when a much more permanent separation hovered, invisible to Charlie, so close to my horizon. My dad sat down at the table with a crunch and unfolded the damp newspaper there. Within seconds, he was clucking his tongue in disapproval. "I don't know why you read the news, Dad. It only ticks you off." He ignored me, grumbling at the second he looked 20 years younger. I saw a dim glimmer of possibility in that smile, but I proceeded slowly. I'm confused, Dad. What are you talking about, Jacob or Edward or me being grounded? The grin flashed again. Sort of, all three. And how do they relate? I asked, cautious. Okay, he sighed, raising his hands as if in surrender. Okay, so I think that's it for today. I'm getting tired, so